Okay, welcome to December 16th, 2024, meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. And
Recording in progress.
Thank you for the recording. Good. Okay, let's take some attendance here. Charlie, are you here? We're calling in from home. No. Larry?
Yes.
Willard's here. Mary? Here. And Eric?
Present.
Okay, so we can move forward with that. As usual, just to let you know, this is a hybrid participation meeting. That really comes back a few years ago out of the governor's office, and that just means people can come here to town hall, or they can watch us at home and participate actively. So that's in effect as we continue. So public comment is the first item on the agenda. And if anyone would like to come forward and speak, whether virtually or here, anybody checking in? We see anybody? Any hands up? Nope. Nothing? Okay. Next, this is Cape Cod Farms, 252 Route 28. This is a tobacco hearing. Our last Board of Health meeting, it was also a tobacco hearing of the same issue, and that was a violation from November 5th, I think? 15th of 2024. And we essentially tabled the conversation and waiting for basically from the Tobacco Control Department. We have a director, and it's Bob Collette, and he's been director for years. So we just wanted him present either virtually or here in town. That's why we decided to wait to the next meeting.
Sure.
Anything on this?
No, I would say this. I don't know if representative principals from the Cape Cod Farms want to come up and introduce yourselves.
So welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Just for the record, we just need to hear your names, okay?
My name is Girish.
My name is Manish Sharma.
Okay. Thank you again. You know why you're here, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to say before the board kind of takes over?
So what we say, we don't have to, we already said what we have to say.
Okay.
So we are here for the Bob, so he will just.
Okay, so certainly like to hear from Mr. Collette, our Tobacco Control Services
Sure.
Director.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Bob Collette, Director, Cape Cod Regional Tobacco Control Program. So I guess on the morning of November 15th, 2024, it's in Yarmouth, and way we're doing the inspections now is rather than go in and do all of them or half of them on one day, we're sort of spreading them out over the course of the year. So we do a handful a month, and I happened to be in the neighborhood that morning and stopped into Cape Cod Farms at 252 Route 28 to do the routine annual inspection. And, upon just glancing around when I walked in, the product in question, Game Green cigarillos, I saw them immediately in two locations. One in there's a display case on the counter, and then the power wall, of course, behind behind the counter, it's known as a power wall with all those products on there. So they had them at two locations. I didn't say anything initially, but having done this work for 30 years, whenever there's a violation or an illegal product of some sort, they leap right off the shelf at me, the products that are not supposed to be sold. Yeah. So I noticed it right away. There is another similar product called Game Green Sweets, and those are not illegal. But the plain Game Green is a vanilla flavored product that's been, the retail environment has been well aware of this retail community has been well aware of this for years. And so they've had them in 2 different locations, and I completed the whole inspection and then notified the person who was there working on that morning that those products are illegal, to be removed and returned to the distributor. So, you know, yeah, I don't find those around very often. Now and again, I'll find them. The distributors generally know that they shouldn't be, you know, providing this to the local retailers. And the retailers, you know, have a great responsibility to be well aware of the law, all laws pertaining to tobacco, including, and one of the most important things, you know, that flavored products are illegal to sell in Massachusetts. So that's it. I mean, you know, there's no question about it. They also did have Green Sweet and, you know, several other legal products, of course, but this one is definitely illegal, and it was not Green Sweet. It was just plain Game Green. And again, in 2 locations within the store.
Bob, did they remove them when you told them that?
Yes.
So do you understand what the tobacco control program director is saying? That Mr. Collette is saying, you understand what he's saying?
Yeah, we
Okay.
understand what he's saying. But at that day, so there's only Game Green Sweet. So
You there when he was,
yeah, at that day, so I'm helping my uncle. My uncle has some urgent work, so he asked me to stay here.
so you don't remember removing product that Mr. Collette said was illegal?
So at that time, I was new in this. Like I'm not like experienced who is working there. So I was like, I don't know about any idea what is legal. When I told my uncle that the guy came, he asked me to put back, and it's not legal. So I don't know about that. So I just asked my uncle to, and the guy came and he said to. So but I had to ask. So I just told to him. When he get letter, so he at that moment he come to the office and told the field like, we got this.
So you told your uncle about the inspector and about the product that you were told to remove?
Yeah.
And did your uncle understand?
Yeah, my uncle knows that Game Green Sweet is legal, and what he write.
And did he know that Game Green was not legal?
Yeah, he know that.
And did he know that that was the product that was at the store when Mr. Collette came in?
Yeah, I just when he came back from this work, so I was there. So I just asked that he asked me to remove that and give it to him. So he just tell me that that's legal. So that's what it is.
Bob, did you feel like they understood what you were saying when you were telling?
Yes, they removed it, and I advised them that, you know, that needs to be returned, that it's illegal, and that it's vanilla flavored, and it needs to be returned to the distributor, who should know better. You know, again, for the board's benefit, when I enter a retailer, I always lead with education. There are several products out there that are flavored right now that are not, and are claimed by the manufacturers not to be flavored. But Game Green is not one of those. You know, they're all required to have a letter from the manufacturer that states that for every product that they sell, that the product is not flavored. And in many cases, you know, it doesn't happen. The letters are inaccurate and so forth. But it's long been known that Game Green is indeed a flavored product. And so, again, notified the person who was working that morning and asked them to remove it. They did. They took, you know, and then I put the one in the front case on the counter, and then there was some behind the counter on the lower shelf And I pointed those out and asked him to remove those. So he took both of those, and there's like a stairway in the back there that goes up to an office, I presume. So he just, stuck them back up there in the stairway, and that was that. So in this case, I felt compelled to report the violation.
For sure.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation so this doesn't happen again for the store owner?
Well, I think in this case, the board doesn't really have any, there's no opportunity for variance here. You have to, you're compelled to fine in this case and issue the attendant suspension of the sales permit for a determined period of time. But they need to know better. I spend a lot of time and effort trying to educate folks, and I know there's a lot of turnover sometimes with ownership and staff and all of that. But the bottom line is, in the end, when a retailer has the privilege of a tobacco sales permit from the town of Yarmouth, it's their responsibility to understand what the law requires for them to operate in a legal manner. And in this case, they were selling a flavored product, and there's no variance to the penalty phase in this.
Right.
Yeah.
And just so the public knows, and what, besides the fine, what else is there? What are we talking
Well,
about?
it's also a required suspension.
Right.
We recommend 3 days. I think you may have issued a similar suspension, fine and suspension for a first offense within the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So I would remain consistent with what you did previously. So a fine would be $1,000, and I suspect you probably did a 3-day suspension.
Motion.
Yeah, sure.
I move that we fine the Cape Cod Farms at 252 Route 28, a $1,000 fine for having for sale an illegal product, and that they have a 3-day suspension of their tobacco license. And we can talk about when that will start.
Okay, so we need that before,
Right. Usually we talk to the
okay.
folks and see what,
I'm fine with that. If you want to, someone wants to just second motion so we can discuss this in detail.
Second.
Okay, now for discussion about when to have those 3 days start. Do you have a preference when to start the suspension? It's 3 days when you won't be able to sell tobacco.
If I could help here, you don't have to close your store, you're just not allowed to sell tobacco products for 3 days, okay?
No, about, I can come with you front.
Sure, you can come forward. Just introduce yourself, okay? Absolutely. Have a seat.
No, my name is Suresh, and it's my brother. I shall help to him. That's the meaning. He have a violation, right?
Yes,
yes,
And you're talking about 3 days. He don't sell in the tobacco any product.
correct.
correct.
But he didn't sell any Game Green. He sell in the Game Green Sweet because he know in the last 15 years that's kind of business. He know about 2019, approx probably June something they banned in the Game Green. He know.
Was the product on the shelf, though? It doesn't,
Game
it doesn't,
Green Sweet.
it doesn't matter if it was sold. Simply having it on the shelf is a violation.
No. They don't have it in the shelf. They have it in the shelf inside in the store. Game Green Sweet. not game green.
Okay, that's not what our inspector is saying, sir.
I don't know. Now we decide. I don't know.
So
No.
we need to move forward on this. So as a courtesy to you, we're giving you the choice in some ways when to have those 3 days start, where you would not be able to sell
No,
tobacco.
I understand because you have a all kind invoice when you buy those game green sweet. When you buy, you don't have. You can check in the whole all invoice in the store. I can bring them to whole years. I don't have any invoice game green.
So
I have all invoice game green sweet.
let's go ahead and start the suspension of the license Wednesday. That gives you tomorrow to put up signs or put up sheets or whatever you need to do so that people know that you cannot sell tobacco for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week.
Okay, you start in the probably Wednesday.
I'm
When?
sorry,
When? I didn't hear you. When?
Wednesday, starting Wednesday, you may not sell any tobacco for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That gives you tomorrow to do whatever you need to do to alert the public that there are no tobacco sales that will take place at that store Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
And all your employees need to be aware of this, obviously.
Right.
Any other precautions, Bob, that should be taken care of?
No, like I said, yeah, I always go in and do education first. This particular product kind of, just leaped right out at me. So, and also the board should know that they're, despite assertions to the contrary, there was another violation that was found there just on 8 days later by the Mass Department of Revenue. So they're at that particular store, which I received a letter on. And so it's like, they're in conjunction with the FDA. So I could look up the details on that, but it was probably either an illegal sale to a minor or, unlocked humidor or Massachusetts tax stamps missing or something like that. So the store is not without its problems.
Right.
But they had 2 violations from 2 separate organizations within a 8-day period.
Right. All right.
So,
thanks.
yeah.
That up.
But no, just make sure for the store owners, make sure that anything that you're selling is legal. Always need to have the manufacturer's letters in hand for any product that you're going to put out on your shelf. Game Green is definitely flavored. You cannot sell that. It definitely was on your shelves on that day, despite, what you're claiming right now. And there are several other products. And I'll be sending out a brief list to all of the boards within the next couple of weeks for retailers to refer to. And we'll also include products that are not approved by the FDA, several disposable vape products that will no longer be legal to be sold. There are only a handful that have been approved by the FDA, and they're not. There is lots of this stuff being sold illegally in that sense, but we're not enforcing on that at the moment. So look for those emails coming up soon, and just be very careful about what you're going to attempt to sell in the future, what you offer for sale.
One of the common errors we've seen is that on the day of delivery, the correct person, so to speak, may not be there, and the product is put on the shelf without really being looked at. So it's a common mistake that's made. That's one thing I think the store owners need to be
Right.
aware of.
Right. Now, they didn't have. There are some products out there now that are backwoods products, for instance, that are claimed not to be, and they're all, white, backwoods black, backwoods smooth, backwoods bold. I've been having the retailers remove those from the shelves, just as an educational measure, because they have been unaware, and this has been going on for over a year. But it takes, I have about 400 retailers, and I go to a few every day, and So it takes a while to get to 400 of them. But those used to just be sold under different names, like Backwoods White Russian Cream, or bourbon, or things like Honeyberry. So they've changed. All they did was simply change the name of them, and the retailers are unaware of this. So in that sense, I treat it as just an education thing. And hey, you guys take this off the shelf, return it back to the distributor. These are flavored. Don't sell them anymore. And then we leave it at that, But this is a product that's been widely recognized as a flavored product for a long time. And so when I do find it, it's a bit surprising to me, but it does pop up on occasion. So, and in those cases, that's what the regulation is there for, to enforce upon it.
Okay, thank you. So that was discussion. Now, we have a motion on the table, we need to vote on it. So, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay. All right. We move
Okay.
along.
If I could, well, I do need you to drop off a check for $1,000 made out to the town of Yarmouth. That is the board, the penalty to this. And then the health department will come out and take a look, as the board has directed, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, just to ensure, help you if we can, but no, there can't be any visual tobacco products open for sale. So you can kind of think that, as Mary said, kind of configure that to what will make sense tomorrow, but that starts first thing on Wednesday.
And when do you expect the check?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, he said.
No,
They should-
the
it
actual
should-
payment. Yeah,
It should be delivered tomorrow.
okay.
And you wanna take it out all stuff in the outside? Yeah, you should just put in the plastic, yeah, something in the all tobacco.
Bob, you can jump in here, Bob, but it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be visual for for a consumer to take a look and see, right? There should be a barrier there.
Technically, it should be removed from the premises, but if the board doesn't want to insist on that, then it should all be out of view at least. Because if it's not removed from the premises, then what's to prevent them from, taking care of customers' needs, just by going into the back room to get what they're asking for. I don't know, but that's up to you.
Board members, any?
I would hope, I would like to think, proper signage.
Signage and out of sight. They can use sheets
Yeah.
or, something that would just
Yeah,
cover
I'm
it up.
fine with that.
You good with that? So, you good with that?
You, all right.
I think that's reasonable.
I think that,
Okay. Eric, you're okay with that? Fine.
gentlemen, do you understand proper signage at the door, multiple locations, and then a visual barrier so that customers would not be able to see tobacco products, but it's clearly delineated that tobacco products are not being offered for sale,
Okay.
okay? Letting them know. And then and I think the board made the point, is it making the staff know, or maybe Bob did, that your staff needs to be made aware. I don't know how many people you have coming in over those 3 days. No, they're not going to reach behind whatever barrier you put up. And then we'll be back.
Okay, I have one more request. If you have a possible, can I give it to for 1 week time for, I can tell to customer, I'm not selling this 3 day,
What was the question?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Please.
Anyone?
I think he wants
Repeat that.
a little more time before we start the
3 days.
suspension.
What,
In other words, 1 day isn't enough, is that?
Yeah, just 1 day is not enough,
Right.
enough for what?
I want to tell to all customer, I'm not selling this product in those
Enough
3
to,
days.
enough
yeah.
to put up some signs and a sheet?
Yes, it and everything,
I think it's enough.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, as a courtesy, we actually asked you first, so I think, as stated, we're going to start. Okay, we're not going to wait. That's sort of what we said, and that's going to go into effect. Okay?
Okay.
Can I just clarify the dates on that? We have the days, so 18th, 19th, and 20th, correct?
Correct.
Of December
Yes.
2024. Thank you.
Great. All right.
That's consistent with what the board has done in the past. We don't delay. You haven't delayed.
Right.
It's implemented immediately. If not, yeah.
And as I always say, we really don't want to see you again for this kind of problem. All right, it's a lot of money, and we understand that,
Yeah.
and so do your
No.
job to make sure it doesn't happen again.
No,
but- okay.
no, doesn't have, he didn't make a mistake. I don't know what happening with him, I don't know,
Okay,
because,
thank you for coming in.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, next, is number 3 here, Mellow / Wilson Cranberry Bog, fresh from the vine, septic system, Title V inspection, and it's listing 2 property co-owners, Brian Wilson, Steve Wilson, that's what's on our agenda for tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if you remember at the last meeting, the board had taken a vote and asked for, within 10 days, for a Title V inspection to come from a septic inspector, a registered and licensed septic inspector. That hasn't happened. We haven't received any report yet. I don't see the property owners here, but Barry Lewis has gone out to the property. You have pictures. And I think it gives you a better illustration as to, this isn't just a rinse station, that they talked about an outside shower. And Barry, maybe if you could just kind of inform the board as to what you found on your visit.
So my first visit is when I got the pictures a few months ago. So, and it's clearly a nice tiled shower. You can see the pictures of the washer and dryer. Of the washer. When the Mr. Wilson, Steve, said that it just flowed out into the parking lot. I was curious about that, so I went out the next day I got called out by Brian Wilson, the brother, to meet him out there. I got out there. The son was out there. He said I'm not allowed to go inside without a warrant. I was fine with that. I was like, I just want to see where this washer and the shower are draining out to. He said, well, actually, right here, we're standing on the pit that my father did dig. I said, so he said in the meeting on live TV that it just drained out into the gravel and he never dug a pit. And you're telling me now there's a pit right underneath me. He said, yes, there is a pit right underneath me. So I said, that's all I needed to know. I said, I still want the Title V inspection to be done just to see where it's going to. It's probably less than 50 feet from the water that provides the water to the Cranberry Bog, and that water also goes to Lewis Bay. So to me, it's a very big environmental hazard that this pit is being used. So, and then we never got a report that you guys requested, so.
Did they ever ask you for a list of,
There's been no contact with them in that. The other part, I did check with the building department. There's been no plumbing permits. They alluded to the fact that, well, maybe we'll just disconnect or we'll do something to maybe alternative to adjust. No permits have been pulled in that regard either. And that would be required.
I mean, this is
what
not
would
the,
be required? What-
For disconnect, if you're doing plumbing.
Right.
And they would disconnect that and eliminate that, say, well, there's no need for a Title V system here because we don't have any plumbing here. We don't have anything, no water is going anywhere. Well, again, I didn't go today, but I did check to see if they pull a plumbing permit for that. They have not.
But they have to have had plumbing, so they have water for the shower and
They
the
do.
washing
There's-
machine.
For the installation, there's no plumbing permit either.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Okay. A pit, what does that usually involve? I mean, is that something?
Just probably, I don't know the size that they dug, like if there's pits now, like in previous history, it's usually a 6 by 6 by 6 cinder block or brick dry well that water just flows into and seeps right into the ground. So that's,
Covered up with soil?
yeah,
so-
just covered with something and with some kind of lid and then covered back up with dirt, so.
It's referred to
It's just
as a cesspool.
leaching into the ground without any engineered design to make sure it's a
A cesspool, like Jay
Yeah,
said.
a cesspool.
Yeah, I know about them. Grew up with one.
I mean, it's fairly straightforward. The 10 days to produce the inspection report. It's not been done.
Nope.
And certainly the town has the right to request that.
So what
Fortunately,
is-
no one showed up here tonight.
What is the recourse then?
So I would recommend, if the board were so inclined, to direct the health office to put this into housing court, and that's what, in Plymouth, and that's where this would be heard, that would make the testimony that in fact there is an illegal septic system, or maybe there isn't a system that is required. That's the perk test, the engineering, and the installation. None of that exists. It is required from what we can see here, and that could then go in front of a clerk magistrate. So if the board were to vote, we can put this into, the recourse right now is, unfortunately, they're not here. To hear from them is to say, they put this into housing court.
So would that be an official letter from the department that,
We just go ahead, if the board would direct the office to do this, we'll file this in housing court, and then they will be made aware of that. They then
From
to
the
appear
housing
from the house,
court directly.
from court. Yeah, it's up in district court.
If a Title V inspector went out to that property, would he or she find the pit?
What they do, they take a camera through the drain of the washer or drain through the shower, and they can snake it through and find it. That's how they, like if
Like a
you.
colonoscopy?
Yes. Literally, it's going to, yes, they're looking for the same thing. But that's how they do Title V inspections, like if you sell your house or you're purchasing a house, and they can't find the distribution box or the septic, anything like that, they have like 150-foot snakes with cameras with tiny little, the size of a pin, and they go through and they can see everything, find root overgrowth or structural damage. So it's a very easy process to do. So
Since, Mary, you brought up the point, the colonoscopies aren't 150 feet long. You're aware of that. The dinosaurs, they might be, but the rest of us, no. While we're on,
Idea about that technology, that's amazing.
or sometimes, do you ever use a dye to put down there and see, does it come out anywhere?
I guess you could but a lot of times what they'll do, they can flush, like if it's a regular home system that has a toilet, they can flush like it looks like a pill, and then they can trace it where it goes to. That's how they can find it also.
Right.
But those are one-time use only. They're done after that, so.
Well, you brought up the issue of a toilet and colonoscopy. We haven't mentioned, we've talked about a shower and washer and so on. Is there a toilet there?
No toilet.
No toilet.
No toilet. There is a porta potty on site.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
So just a shower and washer machine.
Hopefully, these pictures will let the board know, it's different than what was presented at the last meeting, so that you're aware that this is not elaborate, but it is substantial, well-constructed, and this is an indoor shower and a washing machine area. And there are provisions within Title V for a gray water system, and that can be done. We have no information whatsoever, and it's required.
Okay, we should move ahead with, I guess, a motion. I don't think we have any other option, especially since nobody's here representing the property.
I move that we ask the health director to go ahead and file a complaint with the court in
Plymouth Housing Court?
Plymouth Housing Court regarding the neglect of the owners of the Wilson Cranberry Bog to have the septic inspection as we required at our last meeting, or to have any contact with the health department about why not.
Thank you, Mary, that's clear. So, any second to that motion?
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? Probably not. Okay, so all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, we're done with that. Great. Jay, you're okay?
I'll keep the board informed as to, and it could be, I gotta tell you, Housing Court does a pretty good job moving things along, but I'll keep you posted as to what that hearing, what the dates and the chronology of that, what that will look like.
Okay.
Okay, what do you suspect that they're going to require this owner to do? Just remove the shower? Is that what you?
Typically, they're going to ask you, they're going to ask the complainant to say, how do you want to comply here? There are regulations and there's environmental consequences here. Either you're going to remove this, your choice, or install, have we're going to have a perk test, we're going to have an engineered system, and it has to be in compliance with Title V. These are environmental violations, and they'll probably lay them out to say, which is it that you want to do? Remove the infrastructure that you have in place, or comply with Title V. That would be my guess.
Remove with properly pulling all permits and stuff too, so.
Right.
Larry, you're fairly new here. Do you know what a perk test is?
Yes.
Great. All right, I certainly didn't know when I started out. Great.
No, I understood the whole process. What I didn't understand is, since they agreed to remove everything to begin with when they were here, why we just didn't let them do that and end the process?
Because there's still a pit there, and what's to stop them from putting something back in there?
Yeah.
So
My sense,
if they want to abandon the pit and everything, that the pit needs to be filled in, all piping needs to be destroyed going out to the pit. They can tell us all day long that they took out the washing machine and took off the head of the shower, but what's stopping it from, I pull out and I leave and they just put it right back. So to properly abandon a system, it has to be demolished and completely abandoned.
There's a long history on this.
as I recall what he said, though, that he told us there was no pit. There was nothing there.
Yeah, that's what he said. Then I went out the next day, and the son said there actually is a pit. And the son had me was videotaping me the entire time and said that we are actually standing on the pit. So that the father had dug.
Okay.
So
But Larry, you're correct. There is a process to decommission a cesspool or even a Title V. That'll happen when the sewer system, as it moves along, and people will be decommissioning their Title V systems. As Barry said, they're pumped, they're broken open, they're crushed, they're filled. There's a way to do that, and that's potentially, I don't want to presuppose what a clerk magistrate will do, but that's an option that he has. But there's a process to that. It isn't simply telling us, well, then we'll just disconnect. No, we would go out and take a look at that to make sure it's no longer functioning. But that's an option. But this is elaborate. This isn't just an outside shower that after you've come off the beach, you rinse your shoes. Yeah, or you rinse your feet, rather. Yeah,
I can see that.
yeah. All right, I'll keep the board posted as to how that moves forward.
thank you,
Okay.
board.
Okay. Number 4 on the agenda is green burial and a draft regulation, which we certainly got the draft in our packet.
Sure. So at the last meeting, and I think the board gave me some information and some margins here to now build and again, a draft. I'd expect, I don't know if there are edits involved. Did I capture everything? And I thought possibly if you had some time to look through this to say, okay, do we have enough of a comprehensive green burial policy that with edits that the board may have? Once that is finalized, we'd have a public hearing. Then there would be a vote. And then it sits up at the clerk's office for, I believe the number's 21 days. Anyone can appeal, they can comment, and then once that appeal period is over, then it would be enacted. It gets publicized and enacted.
Should we have hearings?
That's what I was saying, a public hearing, I did, yeah, public hearing, yeah. But I'm not moving this forward into, I wanted the board, there may be some edits here, there may be some things to eliminate. Did I capture everything? I wasn't sure.
I'd like to recommend that we contact the applicant for green burial to let him know that it's not going to be possible on his property because it is Zone 2, and we've heard that there's no variances to Zone 2, but that we are moving ahead with formulating a policy, and that we're very sorry that, this is the outcome and that it has taken so long.
Mary, thank you on that. Hillary and I both had that same concern earlier, and that's why we were a little bit delayed going in. A number of things we were going over as far as making sure, but that was one of them to say. It's been 2 months since I haven't heard from him, but I don't want to dead end that communication either. So we'd said exactly those things. But So yes, I will reach out to him.
It's clear he has no options in sense of the property and Zone 2, that there isn't any. I mean, that's the point. There's no potential variance of any sort. There's no room on the property for this, period.
Because it's in Zone 2, or part of it.
The entire
being part
property.
of it.
Not the entire.
Not the
Right,
entire,
so
just
is
a
there,
part
that's what
of
I'm
it.
saying, is there room on his property?
No, if because the rule is if part of it's in Zone 2, the whole of the property is considered in Zone 2, correct?
Well,
That just has to be really clear to him, that
Right.
we owe that to
you're
him.
referencing the rule, I just want to clarify, where is that rule coming from? That's the rule that's been followed for is it septic system installations, where if a portion of the property is in Zone 2, therefore they consider the whole property to be in Zone 2?
Right. That's right.
So I just want to clarify, I mean, I think that was up to us and at our discretion as we developed this, how we wanted to handle that.
No, we don't have, what you and Barry both said, there's no variances
There
to
was-
that rule.
We don't have any variances for the septic, there's no variances. And if this is in Zone 2, we have been told, you're not allowed.
But this isn't a septic.
No, I know. I guess I was trying to give the analogy of what Eric was alluding to. But if it's in Zone 2, it is not allowed.
If what's in, just to be clear,
Property.
If the property is in Zone 2,
entire property.
Any
they
portion
don't,
of the
they didn't give
property.
it, they didn't divide this and say, well, what about it? But if the burial lot is outside of the margins, well, actually, if you go further down, if you do the buffer zone, it's not going to be allowed, it's not going to be allowed anyway. But if a property is located in Zone 2, it is not allowed.
By, is it DEP?
Where did you find it, Barry?
I think it was DEP and the water department said that if it's in the zone 2, it's not allowed.
We just can't be wrong about this, so, just because DEP said that we need to see a regulation to make sure.
That's my
'cause you're on
concern,
target with
because
that.
I don't think we ever heard back from,
Barry's been in contact, you've been in contact with DEP regularly.
yes, I have. And they said it's not allowed in the zone 2, so they didn't say half the property or anything like that. It's, the way we go by it is if any portion of the property is in a zone 2, the entire property is in a zone 2.
Well, right. I guess my concern is, you're saying that's how we interpret that, but that's a precedent that's been set for a totally different process, a totally different issue. So I just want to make sure we're thinking about this.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. I'm not confident right now listening, that's all. What have you heard there? Some documentation.
They say zone 2, that it's not allowed in zone 2, so
They don't say if half the property or not. I can do some more research on this, reach back out to DEP on it and the water commissioner
Right.
and see what they say.
Yeah. A definitive
Yep.
statement.
Because I understand what you're saying, but we're drawing a parallel between two completely different tasks.
I agree. Just to be clear, though, on this, Barry didn't reach out about septic system. He was reaching out about green burials.
Yeah.
Right.
So that, although there's an analogy here as far as, well, we use that same.
Groundwater
Right, yeah,
contamination, I suppose,
that's,
is
that's,
yeah.
the same calculus is being used for two different purposes.
But we need to determine if,
So they're not specific, like if it's half of a property or a quarter of a property.
Right.
They said if the property's in a zone 2,
right.
it's not allowed.
Well, that's what I think we need to develop some clarity on.
Okay.
If we're discussing, and Mr. Ross is certainly not going to be sure exactly where this is coming from. So, once again, we need more than just, that's what they said. We need to know where it came from. Where's the regulation supporting what they're telling you, Barry?
If you could just ask for that in writing, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful to the board.
As well as from the Yarmouth Water Department.
Well, you do have an email, I don't have it with me, you had that in the past where Laurie Rozzolo had said, I provided an email for you in the past. I can get that again. You may have, if you recall, said that not, the recommendation not to be allowed in Zone 2.
Right.
I mean,
But that's not good enough. I mean,
Wasn't
for
good
us to, that doesn't say because of this town regulation or the state regulation. You know, we'd like something solid that says,
Yeah, I will look up her email. I know.
because from what Lori said, they're not going to approve this policy at all. The water department's going to protest.
I agree. I don't think you would get, if you ever get another application, this one or others, I don't want to presuppose their vote, but or their determination or decision, but I don't think they would.
No, I mean, that's how I read that email, you know,
Yeah.
that they weren't going to,
They would err on the side of caution.
right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if it's under Section 5, Number 1, no green burials will be allowed on a property within Zone 2. You know, if we're going to say that any part of, no portion of the property may fall within
Right.
Zone 2 of the Aquifer Protection District.
Right.
I mean, that would just
We'd have to spell that out
provide-
if that's true.
I think, more clarity, not saying, oh, well, you know, only the back
Right.
30 by 40 feet of the property is Zone 2. Why can't I do it over here?
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you brought up the property was in Brewster. Where was it? 16 acres. Well, let's say it was only 10, okay, it was 10 feet is in Zone 2, and the rest of 15 acres is not.
That's my concern.
Yeah, I know Barry's been in touch with DEP. I don't know that they divided up that. They actually, from our own DPW, we send them an address, and they'll say, well, that's in Zone 2, or that is not in Zone 2. We have a map ourselves. We usually cross-reference that with DPW, because a lot of times people will ask, can I get another bedroom? I said, well, our map shows that, no, you can't. We'll call down or email down to do they have the same determination that you're right? It's in Zone 2, an aquifer protection area. No, that's not allowed. You can't upwardly adjust the number of bedrooms from 3 to 4 or 2 to 3, something like that. But we want confidence in that. And that's how that's determined. We just, well, the back 100 feet is not in Zone 2. They don't divide. They don't, subdivide it that way.
This definition of Zone 2, under definitions on the draft, it said it's a wellhead protection area that has been determined by hydrogeological modeling and approved by the Department of Environmental Protection's Drinking Water Program. So it's the town does the modeling, right? And then the DEP,
Makes the determination. Zone 2 is a determination by TEP.
a Zone 2 is determined.
That's taken right off their website.
Who found the email that was sent? So,
Okay,
you want me to read it, or do
yes,
you want?
I can't read
Yeah, I
it from
can't
here.
read it from here.
Hi, Jay. We would like to prohibit green burials in the APD, which is the Aquifer Protection District, per our water consultant's recommendation. The guidance states that the viruses and microorganisms can live for many years after the burial, so theoretically, those microorganisms can get pulled into our wells. Green burials are not specifically called out in the Zone 2 regulations or our APD bylaw. I would be in favor of adding that to that restriction to the APD if necessary.
Okay, so what they're saying, and I was going to ask that, Zone 2 is what we usually call the Aquifer Protection
Yes,
District.
ma'am.
That's usually what Carl is talking to us.
Yes, ma'am.
In that terminology. And so what they're saying, what the water department is saying, or Jeff Colby is saying, is that the designation of Zone 2 does not specifically speak to burials. Right?
It's very vague, correct?
Yes.
I just don't view the burial as being within Zone 2, personally,
Well, you just need
because it's outside of the, I mean, in this particular instance where we had the
Right.
applicant,
Right.
the burial is not taking place in Zone 2. It's on a property with a portion of it that's in Zone 2. So I think we just need to be specific about that.
and how we're going to define that. If 10 Elm Street is in, but some of it isn't, is that considered Zone 2? Either you're all in, you're all, or not, or are we going to get down to the specifics of measuring? Well, it really cuts off at this point. Now, you need a good-sized lot for that, right? It doesn't happen that often where Zone 2 is going to carve a portion. In this case, it does. In this case, it does happen, but many times, it's the vast majority are. Those on the border could. Front yard isn't in Zone 2, backyard is, or vice versa. Yeah, there could be instances like that.
We talk about number 4, a buffer zone to Zone 2, consistent with the Yarmouth Conservation Commission regulations, must be maintained.
Where are you, Mary?
Number 4 on the
What page?
draft, second page, under Section 2, number 4.
Okay.
I thought I got.
Not
took that-
Section 2, rather.
Section 5.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Approval requirements?
No.
Yes, number 4 on the
Yes, it
approval
is
requirements.
Section 5, yep.
Okay.
Sorry, thanks, Larry. A buffer zone to Zone 2 in our wetlands in the burial plot. So, yes, I mean, if we change that and said, well, we're not going to go with any part of the properties in Zone 2, the whole properties in Zone 2, they would still have to
Sure.
have the buffer zone maintained from the part of the property that's
Right.
in Zone 2.
Right. Or if Zone 2 is on an adjacent property.
Good point. Doesn't have to be on their property.
That
So the
brings up
setback
another
may,
point, that the Zone 2 could be on another property that's sort of within a certain,
Right, didn't have to be a buffer
Distance.
zone from that.
so it just seems to not specify a specific measurement is rather arbitrary, because if there's a series of properties, and even the adjacent property is Zone 2, it may be only 10 feet to that adjacent property, but yet that person that's applying for the green burial would be able to, under these rules, he would be able to comply with having a green burial. When in fact, another person who has ample space on their own property, but is in Zone 2, part of their property is in Zone 2, they could be precluded from having a green burial. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm not describing
Oh,
it
no, I
properly.
don't, yeah.
That's clear.
I mean, I think that we could still say no burials in Zone 2,
I think
and not say that, and then just say, that does not mean that if a part of the property's in Zone 2, the whole of the property is considered.
Yeah, you
Zone
could
2.
just get rid of the words "on a property" in item number 1. No green burials will be allowed within Zone 2.
meaning the burial, because they have to have a plan that goes onto the
Sure,
deed.
no
Right.
burial
So with a
plots.
burial
In
plot.
Zone 2, however, there will be buffer zones maintained from any Zone 2, as well as any wetlands or whatever.
With stating what the distance
Sure.
we decide should be.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, the distance
To take care of your
would be,
problem.
I think.
it says
I think just
consistent with the
if we
Conservation Commission.
Specify, as in Section 5, number 4, the buffer zones to Zone 2 established by the wetlands, that might cover
Right,
the issue.
right. And
In
it
other
says,
words, if they comply with
Yep.
Wetlands Act, they could, or the wetland regulation, they could still have a burial on their property.
except that that's not going to be the same as the and although we've never discussed a buffer for the APD, right? We've never had that come up. I mean,
As far as I
when we
recall.
make, when we approve, I don't know that we've made any exceptions. We've approved. It hasn't come up as a question or an issue. So I guess what I'm getting at is the wetlands may not be the last word in terms of a buffer zone. It may be that there's something in the Aquifer Protection District regulations that talk about buffer zones. Are there? Is there something?
I
in
know
the-
there's some in like conservation and building have
Right,
some.
Right, but I'm talking about the APD, because that's basically what the water department's going to be concerned with.
Right. And I referenced, when we talked about buffer zones, hopefully I took it accurately from the last discussion, it was referenced the Conservation Commission buffer zones, is what we talked
Right,
about.
and that's what you
Yeah,
said
I
here,
get it.
right. But I'm just saying this other, there may be other buffer zone requirements.
There may be, well, certainly, we haven't talked about this much, but
Carl might be a good one to ask that, because he's been doing all of the APD stuff for us for years.
one of the things that we haven't talked about, this is private, there's not a lot of them, but there are private wells on another property that could be within, and some of the setbacks, if you recall, one of the handouts that you had in the past that you had received, and I understand you've received a lot, one of the setback requirements for a private well, I think it's 300 feet. I mean, there's a number of different things, but I thought that would fall within I thought the catch-all was within the Conservation Commission. But, we talk about that.
Yeah, probably
say-
not, though.
Probably should be
Probably
spelled
not.
out.
Pardon me?
I don't think the Conservation Commission worries about the drinking water
Private wells?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Setbacks to
I could be
wetlands?
wrong,
Yeah,
but I-
yeah, I'd have to check and see.
Yeah, I don't think that would come under their jurisdiction because it's not a pollutant.
No, it's the,
So there's a number of different things. So not only do you have to have the hydrogeological study on your property, you have to look at the abutters. The abutters have to be notified. That's in there. The board had voted that. But then also a survey of within a certain zone, is there a well? Not just a public drinking water well.
That's a good point. That
Right.
should be included.
it should be, right.
This is complicated. If you think back, we had an issue of some horses.
No, we're not going to talk about the horses.
Yeah.
Because then we'll talk about the burial of the horses.
I think we should specify
keep
that
it
it
as-
would be a well
I won't bring
for
that up.
potable
Mayor.
water, because some people have.
Charlie's not here to tell us how many
Well,
horses
simply
he
put.
has on this property.
The point I was going to make is to get a survey of the neighbor's property adds a whole nother element to this.
Oh, yeah,
Of-
and I don't,
And there was a issue with the horses of what's on the neighbor's property, the distance from the property line, their house. In this circumstance, where's the water line, where's the gas line? I mean, there's some complications to this. If the burial site is close to the property line. So I hadn't thought about this.
well, it wouldn't be though, right? I mean, although we haven't said anything about that.
We talked about, this now setbacks you're talking about.
Yeah.
We said it was consistent with the building code. So like if you're going to put a shed, if you're going to put a garage, there are certain boundary setbacks, front, side, and rear setbacks, consistent with building. I think we said zoning.
Just number 5.
Right.
Right.
Can I just make sure of capturing this right? So number 1 is no green burials will be allowed within Zone 2.
Right. In zone 2.
So that, and we're gonna
I
cap,
mean, I'm just one
No, I'm
No,
fine with that.
so
person here.
that's an edit that I would put
are
in.
you agreeing with that?
I agree with it if,
Okay, the language is okay
yes,
for you.
no green burials.
There'd be a
Would you say green burials or green burial plots?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Either, okay, it's fine.
Would there be a distance that we should specify to Zone 2?
Well, we talked about a buffer zone to zone 2
Okay.
and/or wetlands,
Is that
consistent.
spelled out, the
Well, it
actual-
says consistent with the Yarmouth Conservation Commission, but I pointed out that there's probably something about a buffer zone to zone 2 in the Aquifer Protection District regulations. So it's not just the Conservation Committee would be concerned with that, but it would also be the Zone 2 APD.
One of the things we have to keep in mind is just think about what we're doing and the complexity of it. You have to remember these regulations are for the public to be able to understand it a little bit. Something I think in writing this to understand that. That's all. Just to keep that in mind as we move along on the draft.
Well, I think that if we go through with this and it happens, that the health department staff will be helping people understand this when they come in, because, yes, this is pretty technical stuff, and they're going to want to know, well, How do I know that? Where do I go for that information? Yeah.
I'd like to know what is consistent with the Yarmouth Conservation Commission's regulations. I mean, I know there's often 50-foot or 100-foot buffer zones when conservation areas in question, but
I can almost guarantee, I'm thinking back to conversations, talking to Brittany, I don't think green burials are called out anywhere within conservation, but there are setback kind of requirements, things of that nature, so, and again, not to make it analogous with the septic system, but I just thought there would be standard setbacks that could be applied to this policy.
It's wetlands.
Yeah, and I think I say that in there. I think I said,
Did,
yeah.
and/or wetlands, right?
and/or wetlands.
I mean, and there are specific requirements.
Right.
You're the one who's taking notes. I mean, how are we doing? I mean, for you, I mean, we're here to help also. Yeah, no, it's difficult. Sometimes we all take scribbled notes. It doesn't mean, it's making
Well,
sense.
We do want to look at, I'm going to include something with wells and
Yes,
kind of off
Right.
camera, but Eric said make sure it's not irrigation wells, but potable wells, like drinking water wells.
Okay.
Because otherwise, yeah.
yeah.
We could make it real easy and just say, none allowed in town.
We could say that, but I think we kind of agreed that we wanted to pursue a policy. Is that correct? I
That was
mean,
my feeling.
Or do we
That
wanna say
doesn't-
no
that's-
and just-
We can discuss that, and now's the time to do that before you're going to put more time into this, Jay. I mean, are we going down the wrong path?
Board, are we?
Well, could it be legally challenged if we made a blanket statement like that?
If
It's
we
legal in
just-
the state for green burial. It is.
So,
Apparently, somebody said it back in 1960. We don't have that record yet, right?
The-
No, you didn't find anything from that?
We don't. Mr. Bullock, I believe is the gentleman's name. I can tell you this, in the municipal, again, in the municipal cemeteries across the Cape, Brewster is the only one that does allow green burials. So when you say Yarmouth, does Yarmouth allow green burials for their municipal cemetery? They do not.
Well, but that's not what we're doing. We're talking about on private property.
No, but it's considered, it is the process of interring a body, and in the municipal cemetery, they don't allow them.
Oh, you're saying that people can't even have a green burial in a
No,
formal cemetery?
Brewster is
Haven't
I try,
had that come up yet, have we?
no, in Woodside, up in Yarmouthport, they do allow them,
But that's a private cemetery.
the
that's
private
private.
cemetery. But municipal cemeteries,
Right,
Brewster allows them,
Right.
no one else across the Cape.
And these backyard
right.
potential ones are not cemeteries.
No, they're not.
That's one way to sort of bypass
Yep,
that.
no,
so.
no question.
I'm in favor of pursuing the draft regulation. I don't know how many requests we'll get, but, I think it's important to keep in mind that this particular applicant we have, and I think anyone who's interested in doing this, is doing it in the spirit of being environmentally conscious. So, yes, there's a lot of issues for us to look at, and they're challenging, and there are concerns in terms of environmental health, but, this is a process which is, it's an alternative that's intended to be have much less of an adverse environmental impact. So I think it's worth pursuing, and I suspect if we put the work in and do have some regulation in town, we may see some additional applicants in the future. I don't think there'll be people busting down the door at the health department to getting in line for it, but
mean,
I
there is
think
a-
it's worthwhile.
I agree. I mean, there's a trend for this in the country. I mean, there are
Yes.
organizations specifically for this, so it is happening, and the way you're describing it's part of our mission here.
Yeah.
So I agree with what you
Larry,
said.
what do you say?
I agree with
Okay,
Eric.
okay, so we'll continue.
Okay.
One of the things, I put in variances at the end, but one of the things that came up said, because this is generation, this forever changes a property. And I didn't put in, could 2 generations from now, can it be reversed? Can a body be removed? someone buys a property and said, okay, we're going to raise and replace, we're going to get rid of this, but I also need, this is an encumbrance here, and I need to remove the body. I don't have that anywhere here, and
I would say no.
that
I
can
think it
take,
should be
because that,
irrevocable,
I do
Pardon me?
too.
once they decide that.
Right.
That
No, the
could
two-
open up a whole other
owners,
can of
two owners
worms.
later, my point being is, can it be reversed?
I-
The answer is no.
No, no. You're saying no.
Then I won't even speak
Yeah,
to it.
no,
I
it's a
won't even
great
speak.
point. Yeah, I agree
It's a
with
great
you, Larry.
consideration.
They've got to realize that when they do this.
Okay, that
Buy the
forever,
property then.
it forever changes that property.
Right.
Right, okay.
That's my feeling.
Well, it's on the deed, that's in there, it's on, the board has asked, well, actually DEP, but we reiterate that it's on the, that's in the deed.
And that would apply to the present owner as well as the potential new owner of the property.
Right, that gets transferred on. Yep.
So does the former owner come back and maintain the property around the burial
It
plot?
says current owner, or the owner.
The what? Oh, no, I said,
I think as long as the buyer knows this, then they're responsible for.
Okay,
they're taking care of.
Nine, Mary, number 9, it's, the property owner is responsible for ongoing
No, but-
maintenance.
I know.
Mary Beth says,
But I
hey,
just said if somebody else
so-
buys the land, knowing that there's a grave on it, does that new owner have to keep,
Yeah, they're the owner, they're the owner of the
Yeah,
property.
no, but it's,
they're the owner, I see what you're saying.
but it's a
Okay.
it's a good point, Mary said, you can be taking care of someone else's gravesite, and yep, that's kind of what, I think that's what the board had said, that they were going to be responsible.
So the pickleball court can't go on top of this.
What's that?
You're saying?
What's that again?
Swimming pool. or-
Pickleball
No.
court, it cannot be over the site.
We cannot.
Okay, just one.
So that, to me, brings up a question I had on section 6, number 2, under record keeping. I think that the health department should keep the records, and maybe you were going to anyway, but you're just saying that the property owner has to maintain records also. But since you are getting the application from the person who wants to be buried on their property, and you're going to be viewing the burial, because it says you're going to be witnessing it, that those records also should be kept with the health department, because I think that would, I just think that should happen, because yes, property is going to change hands.
I agree.
And I think somebody other than a property owner should know if we have officially
Somebody
said
needs some official,
exactly.
Kind of like,
Because we have
like how we
permitted
keep
them.
septic, we keep on going back to septic
Exactly.
records, but
Right.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're going to change, be maintained,
Well,
at the health
the
department.
property owner should too,
In
I think,
addition,
but
yeah.
we
In
addition.
should definitely keep.
Yeah,
Must be
otherwise it could
maintained
be
by
in a
the
box
owner
in the
and the health
basement somewhere
department?
for 100 years. Yeah, good pickup.
And then the other question I had in that same section, I didn't know that the Yarmouth Clerk's Office issued burial permits,
they issue a death certificate, which then
Death
gives a
certificate.
death certificate.
but that's not a burial permit.
No.
No. So what are you
I
saying?
get the death certificates. The funeral director probably then goes and gets a burial permit.
So there is such a thing as a burial permit?
There is.
yeah, there's permits for everything, Mary.
We don't see them, but I do get death certificate, like COVID deaths. Yeah,
I
okay.
know about
Oh,
death
yeah, I was going to say, you do,
certificates,
yes, right.
but I've always dealt
Yes.
with a funeral home, so I haven't had to deal with a burial permit. Okay,
so where would that come into this? Where would,
well,
Where would
it's
the-
under section 6, number 1.
okay,
Any green burial site or service provider must obtain a burial permit from the Yarmouth Clerk's Office prior to operation or burial,
You have to
prior to
have a
burial.
permit to bury the body.
Right.
That's something the funeral director, some of this, I don't imagine family members are going to be digging. This would typically be handled, my guess is, when we met, this goes back now 3 months ago probably,
That-
we met with a funeral director, and they have done home burials.
Right, but what I'm saying is, you're saying the applicant to us, to the health department for a green burial has to come to the Yarmouth Clerk's Office and get a burial permit.
Or their agent, the funeral director, we could say, or their,
But basically, you're not dealing with funeral directors at this, when you've got a green burial. And even,
well,
I think the attorney even said they don't like to even get involved with them, because there's no money in it for them. basically.
Well, actually, he had done, he had been, not in, he'd gone out to other states and done some green burials. He had talked about that. It's just the respectful handling of the body, whether it's the material of the casket, transporting the body, things of that nature, just the sheer fact of the equipment.
Yeah, I think there'll be a service
Yeah,
involved with
I
a
do, yeah.
funeral parlor,
Yeah,
even though it'll be a different process than what they're used to.
very different, but
It'll still be a service that they're gonna be required to provide.
there has to be some equipment to dig down into the ground. Is that 4 feet or, 4 feet?
Well, yeah, but
Yep.
typically a funeral home doesn't have to provide that.
No, cemetery typically does that.
Right.
Say that
We're
again?
not talking about
Cemetery.
cemeteries. We're not.
No, I know. I'm just answering your question. Typically, the cemetery, they have equipment, they have backhoes that do that work, yeah.
Right.
So-
Okay.
So someone's going to coordinate all that.
But, I mean, what about the issue if someone who's innovative has equipment and just can do it themselves, or transport a body doesn't bother them, they have a vehicle that can handle it?
Right.
What happens then?
Well, they would still have to get the burial permit.
So have to get a burial permit?
Right.
Right.
But what's stopping them from doing the whole thing themselves? It could be financial. I mean, the reason why someone will do it on their own.
Did we decide if somebody from the Board of Health was gonna inspect the,
I think that's the last one I wrote.
Said that, yeah. We said,
that would cover that?
Number 12 in section 5.
but it says here, this permit will be issued based on compliance with all applicable environmental and health standards. So the burial permit can't be obtained until the applicant has come to the health department and met all of our requirements.
So from,
This is saying,
right,
basically.
so from this,
Not the last step. They still have to go in front of the selectmen also.
Well, no, but I don't want to get there. I just want to talk about the permit. You can't even apply for a permit until you have gone through the health department's process of meeting all of the
exactly, right.
requirements,
And,
right?
and I think, Mary, yes, that's true, and I haven't even come up, from this, I'm going to have to come up with an application.
Yeah.
And also a helpful checklist.
Right.
Do you have this? Do you have all the different pieces? And we do this for a number, but I don't want to use an analogy because it's disrespectful to what this issue is. But there's going to have to be a helpful checklist for the applicant to say, do you have all these things? and
Some
guide them
online,
through.
other towns have done it or started to do it.
Yep,
For-
yep. Okay, yeah, but I don't even have an application yet, and the board, I don't have a fee either. What does it cost? I don't know.
What is underground marking tape? I've never heard of
Yeah,
that.
I have a question mark next to that also.
Go ahead, Barry.
Never heard of it.
Underground marking tape. I've never heard of it.
So like when you bury any kind of, Eric, you probably know this, like you bury any kind of electrical lines, any gas lines, there has to be a magnetic colorful tape that they put on top of that, then they backfill it in. So in the future, if somebody starts digging in this area, there's a noticeable change. You hit that with the excavator, with the bucket, and all of a sudden you see a tape. It's an international sign that say, well, you're going on something that shouldn't be disturbed.
Okay.
That's what that is.
So that brings up like dig safe.
Yeah.
You'd have,
Yeah.
would this come under their jurisdiction?
No, I wouldn't say dig safe, but you have to call dig safe anyway, just so you know where the water lines and gas lines are. But I would do it just for 50 years down the line, it's a safety top,
Right.
just a long, lay it on top of it.
Sure.
Sometimes they'll put in different soil as well. They might put a layer of rock. There's something, an indicator.
So is it
Visual.
metal that doesn't
No,
disintegrate?
it's kind of like caution tape, but
And
this
it doesn't
says
disintegrate?
this says biohazard on it. It's bright red.
Plastic
It's
takes
plastic.
few
I mean,
Whoever-
1,000
right.
years, right? 100 years,
For-
200 years.
million
anyway.
Let's not say that word.
But Verizon or any of them, any of the utilities, they lay down tape.
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
I thought
it's-
that was a great
I just didn't
addition.
know. I'd never heard of it. so
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
just
realize that was-
because I've come across it doing perk tests and stuff like that. All of a sudden, we'd be digging. All of a sudden, you hit a pocket of gravel with this on it, and you know instantly right then you have to stop digging. That's why we put it in there.
It's a good indicator.
I have just one more comment, and then I'll be quiet, because there probably other people would like to make some. Back on section 4, number 2, casket/containment. Only biodegradable materials, example, wood, wicker, bamboo, or untreated cardboard, may be used for caskets. And I don't want to say or shrouds, because you're not going to, I don't think you're gonna use wood, wicker, bamboo, or untreated cardboard as a shroud. But what do you use as a shroud for the green burial?
You can use a wool, you burlap sack, you can use, they can use their grandmother's afghan, or something like that they could use.
I think that's covered by only biodegradable materials can be.
But we have given examples for the biodegradable materials, and I'm saying that does not include examples for shrouds. So what I'd like to say is only biodegradable materials, blah, 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 and treated cardboard may be used for caskets, or biodegradable fabric, or wool, or something, whatever you said. You said wool. Materials,
Textile,
Organic.
textiles,
biodegradable textile.
right.
Here's one definition, it was on the list that I found somewhere, was for shroud, maybe that should be in one of our definitions.
Yes, yeah.
Before we started this, I didn't know what a shroud was. So this had said fabric cloth or sheet that is wrapped around, sheet would be too generalized, but something's biodegradable, at least a fabric cloth that is wrapped around the deceased for burial. Often shrouds have a built-in rigid board for carrying or carried on a shrouding board. That was the definition. That doesn't mean it has to be this, but it certainly, shroud should be on our list of definitions, I think.
So shroud goes on definitions.
So a shroud could be any organic material, actually.
I think so. Well, that's
Okay.
up to us, but
Organic
yeah,
material?
if that's,
Okay.
That would cover everything,
Yeah,
as long as it's organic material, because that's going to
which is what
decompose.
wool is.
So
yeah.
I'll then insert that into number 2.
Or,
At the
yeah.
after caskets, or a shroud made of any,
Organic
consisting of any
material.
organic material.
Organic materials.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I'm good.
Did this capture
Some
what
other
what the board is looking to?
comments?
Did this capture what the board is looking, somewhat with
I
some
think
edits?
I think it's great. I mean, I have a few notes in here all, but someone else want to speak up with suggestions? I had a few, oh, you do? Great.
Well, so how did we leave it with the buffer zone to zone 2? Did we have a specific measurement, or are we just going to leave it
We'll
with,
get with the conservation department and building department, see what their
okay?
requirements
Because
are.
that would cover zone 2 on another property as
Yeah.
well.
Definitely.
Right.
Okay. One thing we haven't talked about is cremation. People thinking they want to do that, does our
It's not a green burial.
Yes. not
right, so I think a definition would be important, because people may be ready, we had talked about putting an urn in the ground, and that's not really what we're talking about for green burials.
The only thing to spread ashes per Massachusetts state law is you just have to have permission from the landowner.
Yes, that's all, just permission, and actually that could be in a municipal, we get, that's happened at, DNR gets them on beaches, things of that nature, yeah.
Right, the definition, if it's helpful here, that I copied, I mean, I didn't write these. The process of extreme dehydration and evaporation created with intense heat, which reduces the composition of the body to inorganic bone fragments.
So,
How's cremation, people may have the question, is it related, it's not allowed, it's allowed, that kind of thing,
Not
maybe
green
needs to
burial.
be in there.
It's not green burial.
it's separate.
Right.
Yeah.
People may not know that, thinking, well, at home, I'll just put it in the ground.
So almost giving the exclusion of a green burial is not cremation, actually give the positive, give the definition that a green burial
Do not include,
does not include, I could put
Yeah.
that in there, it's a method, what did I write? Embalming fluids, allowing the body to naturally decompose. I can continue on with another sentence to say this,
Or cremation.
green burial is not include cremation.
Right,
right.
Okay.
yeah, good.
What's more environmentally kind?
Cremation is not,
It isn't?
absolutely not.
Why not?
It takes a huge amount of energy, and it's also polluting the
Oh, I see, you talking about the process of cremation.
process, yes.
Oh, I was thinking,
Aside from,
Getting there, getting to the ashes.
well, yeah, but that's another issue.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's all together.
Well, not really.
Interesting, I hadn't thought of that also. I was just thinking the end product is ashes.
The end product.
And then talk about whether
But I
an
think
herb.
Well, and
beyond
that's
the
already
scope of what
covered.
we're
They've said
talking
that's
about.
already covered. In Massachusetts, that's allowed. You can scatter the ashes, you just have to have permission of the property owner.
That's true.
But actual cremation process is beyond the scope of this discussion.
Yes, because it's not green. That's why, that's how I see it. It's not green.
That's not gonna slow people down from doing that.
Oh, I'm not trying to slow them
Yeah.
down. No, I mean,
Okay.
no.
Did we answer the question?
So, in the definition of green burial, I'm just going to extend that to,
We separated the process from the
Right.
disposal of the ashes.
And probably what you might say is this does not include cremation. Scattering of ashes is handled separately under another, what, regulation?
I don't even think we need to
really,
mention
there
that.
really isn't.
What is it called? I mean, when you, where does it state that you have to get permission of the property owner? Is that a state law? You
Yeah, I
Barry,
think
you
we
said
looked at- yeah.
Massachusetts?
I have it, I say on my desktop, so
Okay, so you could just say that is covered under state law. blah,
that's
blah, blah.
general law.
Is that really an issue here?
Well, yeah, because Hill had brought it up.
Well, somebody might think that, oh, I want to do a green burial, I just want to
Bury my
put my
ashes.
ashes in the ground, and
Yeah, no, these are far more stringent
Right.
regulations than a,
Right.
than
I think
a
people that are
scattering.
gonna do that are just gonna do that.
probably.
Yeah,
Well, yes,
right.
yes, right. It's like the horses. I think that's so funny.
Yeah, it is.
So many horses underground here.
So I,
It goes back to the saying, I'm not what I wanna be, I'm not what I will be, but thankfully, I'm not what I used to be.
Right.
Good one. Like it.
Yeah.
so I just want to clarify here, I know we've been over this.
Are you gonna beat a dead horse?
I'm gonna, I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Don't bury it, but
Let's beat it first.
Low-hanging fruit.
go ahead.
Under section 1, paragraph 2, green burials are allowed in Massachusetts, however, require the approval of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and the Yarmouth Board of Health.
With final approval.
I'm just kind of circling back to our conversation earlier under the approval requirements where we discussed the Zone 2. So is this the concern, is that DEP, we think, is viewing a property with a portion of the property in Zone 2 as a Zone 2 property, therefore may not approve
No.
the green burial? I'm just
Eric,
trying
say
to.
that again?
I think he's saying if they go to DEP and it's in a zone 2, DEP won't approve it, right?
Well, really what I'm concerned about is if there's a proposed green burial, and in the case of our applicant, although he had DEP approval already,
No.
didn't he?
No.
No. He was not issued DEP approval.
I don't know, I haven't heard from him since he said he was going to forward this on, and I've heard nothing from it. That's been at least 2 months.
Okay. Well, that's my concern is, are we, by making the change in section 5, are we effectively going against what the DEP would ever approve?
This is a local, this is now a local ordinance.
Well, I understand, but if DEP approval is required for a
Oh, I
green
see what you're saying.
burial to take place, are we creating a regulation here that
He's in conflict.
is in conflict with?
Well, Barry, you
DEP.
said that. what
I
did
don't
you
think
say?
DEP has done enough of these to put,
Because I remember the email correspondence I had where the individual said DEP does not
issue approval for green burials.
We got a lot of conflicting and a lot of conflicting results from DEP. Like
Yeah.
they say they don't issue it or do anything, but clearly in there it states it must be approved by DEP. Then DEP says, "Oh, we don't do that," but it clearly it's such a new and
It's in their regulation, I'm sorry. I've had
Yeah,
two conversations in my office on speaker with others in the room, Mark Grills, because we're trying to get this, my building commissioner. He said, it does get reviewed by DEP. It is, and a matter of fact, the attorney, I mean, she'd done two others, I mean, expert, she had handled this before. It gets sent on to DEP somewhere. Does the board say first, yes, and then DEP, or DEP and then the board? I don't think it matters at that, I honestly don't, but DEP is part of the process of information, and they want to call it approval, I don't know that they are a checklist.
they're the first ones.
Okay.
They can, Mr. McCurdy can, or anybody else in the future, that's where they start with DEP. They start with them, and then they come to the board, and then it moves forward from there, so.
And then they get a burial permit.
So a person in the public's, I guess you go to the health department and find out, no, you come in the wrong department, you have to go to DEP first? I mean, the
No.
person doesn't,
No, because he's gonna,
That's what you're
we're gonna have a checklist, we're gonna have
I will.
a guidance
right.
for them.
We do this, and I keep going back to that because you're digging in the earth. We have a whole 25 on septic system. We hand that out many times. These are the things that you need. I haven't developed that yet, but from this policy, we'll give an informational guide and then an application.
It's just helpful for them to know if they get turned down on number 2, they don't have to go through number 25 if this
right.
is,
Well, that,
excuse the expression, a dead issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at some point, is that what could happen and it never even reaches us?
Sure, that could happen.
Number 2?
No question it could happen.
So that's going to possibly automatically happen, even though we're
that's
deciding
happened
to
to
have the
our
regular.
applicant.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question, since he hasn't been here. Did he come up against a stone wall with the DEP, and that's why he's not back here?
I'd be guessing, but to Mary,
Anybody
Hill and I
heard
talked about,
anything from him?
Larry, we have not heard from him.
Okay.
Some of mine, and really, it was,
Lost communications with him prior to him going to DEP, and then I haven't heard anything.
No,
Or do you think he, well, we don't know.
I'm
And
not
we-
gonna make any assumptions.
and quite frankly, it's given the board time to now put a policy in place.
Right.
Right. So I think we're close. I know we're still kind of wordsmithing this or kind of trying to come up with all the different options and all the different things the variables that can happen here. But I think we're closing in on something that can be, have a hearing on and even then, the clay, it hasn't hardened on it. We can still change it at the hearing.
Tweak
Sure.
it again?
Yeah, absolutely.
what if we, wrote the policy and sent it to DEP and said, and asked for their opinion on it? Instead of leaving it up to the poor applicants to find out that are staying within Zone 2, and that excludes, you know.
Yeah, it's certainly an option. And I think we're putting a lot of, not credibility, but a lot of things that they have a strong working knowledge of this green burials, and they don't.
Understand they don't.
Okay.
But, let's give them a,
Once this is in a finalized format to send it on to DEP, sure.
just say, do you have any comments on this?
It's, the
'cause
state
if they
allows it.
Because if they say right away, oh, wait a minute, Zone 2, no, I'm sorry, it's just like septic. Anything in a Zone 2, any part of it is all in a Zone 2. Then, at least we've had our definitive answer.
The other set of eyes will be town council will look at this as well.
Yes, but you know what? Town council hasn't had a lot of experience with this either.
No. I wouldn't imagine they would. Well, let's hope they have.
Let's hope they'll know how to research it.
Yep.
Should we change the name of this to Green Home Burial? Right now it says Green Burial / Home Burial.
Yeah, because we're not talking about green burial in a cemetery,
Right.
right?
Green-
This is just
green
home
burial.
Green,
burial.
green home burial.
Good,
Yeah.
good, Eric. Green home
So it's going to be called green home burial,
regulation.
green home burial regulation. I got it.
So, not to throw a whole nother monkey in
All
this.
right, then don't say it.
Yeah, exactly.
What if somebody doesn't want to do a green burial, but just wants to do a regular burial then in their yard?
No.
A regular casket and everything?
Well, this was, I mean, that's, I guess, a different issue, because this is drafted
separate-
around the idea of a,
Green, right.
that's another problem
Let's
for
wait till
another
somebody
time.
comes,
that
wait
even
till
come
somebody
under
comes
Board of Health,
forth
you
with
think?
that.
Yeah. If we're throwing,
We're
That's
gonna,
lit on
we're
this
gonna go back
fire.
to the, is it a cemetery?
Right.
Well, they
And then
could
the
be
cemetery,
called
then you have to
everywhere.
have, that's how I started.
boy.
I started down this road, and we're slowly trying to get to this point, but that's what it become. What's the definition of a cemetery?
We ought to take care of this first.
Yeah, and
right.
if you recall, that's what I was guiding Ross to say, well, you have to, whether it's a charitable organization or religious organization, you have to establish a cemetery and all that, and then kind of went to the direction of, no, this is just gonna be an individual burial.
Right.
So,
Monique, do you have anything?
I had a comment on section, this is page 2, section 5, number 3. Probably could use some help from Eric on this. We're talking about a hydrogeological study, and, I mean, are we requiring a certified soil evaluator licensed in Massachusetts? Who, it shouldn't be your neighbor who's gonna do this just as a favor. So what would be the right term to say, we'll accept report from what kind of
it has to be
title?
a certified soil evaluator.
Certified,
That's in DEP regulations.
Okay, then that should be in here then,
certified soil
whatever the right
evaluation.
terminology is. And also, if it's a survey of the property, we need to say, we went through again, I'm sorry about bringing up the horses again, it's a question of, they can't draw a survey of the property on the back of a napkin.
No,
So
which we
what
get a
kind of
lot.
survey are we requiring? Some language there would be helpful. I don't know the right term.
okay. And, Hilary, are you in the same section 5, number 3?
Correct.
And you're saying, I don't see it as far as the soil,
The last.
Additionally, a soil
certified soil
evaluation.
evaluation.
okay, yeah, okay, I got it.
So someone doesn't have an unnecessary expense if it's not gonna, meet the requirement, that's all.
And
Because, because actually, I mean, typically you have to have a survey that shows the wetlands, if that's any close to your property, so, and that has to be done by a certified surveyor.
Ready for another comment, or,
Yeah, no,
okay,
yep.
all
And-
right.
and-
Page 1, under section 2, it's under definitions. The third one down is biodegradable casket. I put something about other biodegradable items. People put all kinds of things along with people when they've passed away, and some of them may not be biodegradable. Of what else can go there, whether the person has something on them or whatever, that you can't just put in the site just because you're doing nothing else, some favorite item that's made out of some metal that's,
Like
should
a
be
wedding
there.
ring?
I don't know, I'm just putting that out of what,
Yeah, jewelry, yeah.
very good
That's a point.
example of what else people could put in there, that's their favorite, whatever.
Teddy bear.
People often will put flags in from the military, all kinds of things that people put in, in caskets, coffins, whatever. Are there some things that we're not gonna allow in the ground? Is there a way to put that?
Say,
The wedding band is a good example. Should something be disallowed?
Just say only bodies are allowed. Only bodies and their shrouds are allowed in the casket.
So we would say no additional items other than?
Yeah,
Well, it could be organic, again, getting back to,
well, but you know what? Who, do you want the health department witness to
well,
determine
that's the
if it's
other
an
issue. Who's
organic?
gonna enforce that?
The health department is going to witness the burial.
I think the last item I put here, a green burial must be witnessed by a staff of the
Right.
health office.
But
So are you going to ask Barry to determine, is that teddy bear organic? And will it break down, or, I mean, I think and frankly, if people are going to have a green burial, I don't think they're going to be into having trinkets and tchotchkes and extras put in with them.
So you don't think we need to put anything in?
No, I think you need to put what Jay just said.
Okay, okay.
No, nothing other than the body and the shroud are allowed in the casket.
So, okay.
You don't need your wedding ring when you're dead.
For the body.
Okay.
Okay, then on section 5, page 3, something perhaps on number 6 about the number of burials are allowed, or number of,
I think
Yeah.
that's
We've got that
kind
under,
of
is there,
covers itself, doesn't it?
there's a number, well, that's for immediate family members, but what happens if you have 12 members of the family?
well,
Well,
it says that you have
for
to get a,
separate review and approval.
right,
Okay,
we've already, said who did it.
so
must
that,
be
if
separate.
you have enough 10 by 12,
Each burial
Close,
requires a
available.
separate review and approval.
so potentially you could have 40 people of the family then?
Now the setback and all these things,
asking, I
but
don't-
they have to, but then now they have to meet all the requirement, all that, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I tried to capture that from
Okay.
what I think the
All right.
board had said, yeah.
fine, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what about the issue of public meetings? About, in other words, if someone wants to come forward, neighbor, the butter wants to come and speak up, like they do for a rooster,
That's why we send out the
Yeah,
certified
right,
letters.
for the abutters, right.
To the
when
abutters.
they need to know, with that, they're gonna know when to come, to what meeting, where they can,
You would handle the
Say what
board.
they want.
The board would hear the application,
Right. Yeah.
okay.
that they'd be notified.
And, yeah, it'd be handled like any other application.
Okay, fine.
This wouldn't be handled over the counter at the health department. It's gonna come here. Just so you know, this is coming in front of you folks.
Towns can get hired.
Yeah, she's off today. She's got a good time. I got that other thing.
Should we stop talking about this?
I don't have anything else.
Just a question about what to do with Mr. McCurdy. What does the board feel they want to do at this point? Reaching out in some way.
If he's still involved in the process.
Right, and if he's heard from the DEP, tell him that we are progressing on a policy, but there's still some unanswered questions. Which is basically the zone 2 thing.
We'll let them know that we're still in the process of writing policies, right?
Right.
See if he's still even involved in it.
Have you heard from DEP?
That'd be a great question to ask him, but just,
Exactly.
we're moving along on writing the regulations.
All right, I'll put you on that.
Oh, that was it. That's another issue. Right.
What was that? I missed what you
That the person that is the reason for all this might be deceased.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it would
he
be
could
an
have died already, and,
Because that was an issue. He said he had cancer and
right.
he was in fairly good condition, but that could have changed.
That would be sad.
We're trying, yeah.
He was pretty enthusiastic and involved, we'll say that, and then that stopped. The last time we spoke to him here, and I never spoke again to him, was that he was sending things on to DEP.
Right.
Now, something,
Maybe the next meeting, he
Yep.
had something going on.
that was back,
Somebody could certainly Google the man's name and find out his obituary.
regardless, I'd like to reach out to Ross.
It might be nice to know that ahead of time.
His dad's name, yeah, it might probably on the application, yeah, I can get it.
Letter from him.
Yep, we do have it right. Yep.
Yeah, we had,
Yeah, I mean, tell them the effort we're making, that's all.
Yeah, he set some things, he definitely set some things in motion here.
Right.
Yeah, well, since he came here, and Hill and I talked about this earlier,
uncharted waters here, so. I keep going back and not to, there's only 3 states in the country that even allow this. So there's not a lot of research material here.
No. Only 3 states in the country?
There are 3 states in the country that allow it.
What's the other 2?
I don't know. Do you recall, Barry?
I don't recall.
It would be interesting to see some data from, obviously not to disturb a site, but if you could perform some type of survey prior and, pre and post to gather information as to whether or not there is a substantial concern for soil and water contamination over time.
You're welcome to do that.
Well, I wouldn't be the person to do it, but.
What was your question, Eric?
Well, we're doing all of this, again, in the spirit of being environmentally conscious, and it would be really interesting to know, I'm not sure exactly what metric they're using or whether they're looking at nutrient levels or bacteria levels, but it would be really interesting to have, it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of good data out there.
Yeah, you mean as far as what the consequence of,
Yes.
Right.
yeah, I just think in the general scheme of things, it's minimal.
I
You think about all the
Agree.
animals that are, all the cows and chickens and all the animals we eat, all their, everything that left over, how is that eliminated? When you
Right.
put it in the general scheme of things, I think this is just,
Plus the wild animals that die and they're just.
believe it or not, this is a statistic that I saw the other day, that 96% of any living animal either are people or animals that support people. And only 4% of living animals are in the wild.
Wow,
That's a statistic I was floored by.
wow, too.
I think you, as a race, we can take credit for that.
Well, if you
What
want
is
to
that
call
again?
it credit.
There's
yeah.
only 4% that are wild?
4% of all wildlife make up, 4% of any living animal are wildlife, compared to 96% are either people, 8 billion people, and all the animals that support the people, whether they be animals we eat or are companion animals, or
Right.
on and on.
Boy, that's remarkable.
It's
That's a
just
remarkable
staggering.
statistic, yeah.
Wow,
And when you look at all the extinct animals over the last
yeah.
100 years, it's just staggering, and we
Yep.
just don't even pay attention to it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
All right, looks like Jay and I still have some more homework to do on this, but we'll be,
Well, when I wrote this, I tried to capture what the board had asked. One thing is infectious disease control. And what I wrote was just something, kind of a catchphrase of should comply with any relevant infectious disease regulations.
Keep it vague, that's all that's
Okay,
out there. Yeah,
that's it,
the
it gives
information's
a-
not really there, is what we're learning.
I think it's minimal, really, but
Yeah.
you could
Okay.
put it,
But it gives
You
a,
know-
there's something that, in fact, I don't know, the board then has some variation, or some latitude is making it, I don't know if it's chemo, I don't know, the number of different things, so I just kind of use that catchphrase of infectious.
I think that if that issue came up, there are definitely some experts that we could consult to find out, for a
I
specific
think living
instance.
organisms are a lot more of a source of infectious disease than a corpse,
Yes,
by a long shot.
Walk
But if a
around in
corpse-
a crowded place,
Right.
you can pick up the disease.
You have a lot better chance of picking up something than you would
Yes.
from a green
COVID,
burial.
TB, or whatever, yeah.
Right.
I'll make a motion that we move to number 5. How's that? Okay.
Second.
Plastic reduction, thank you. And there's no discussion.
I'd just like to thank whoever put this all together. really did a great job.
Thank you.
Jay.
I
you've done a
appreciate.
Great job.
Yeah.
I appreciate,
A lot
it was
here.
built on,
what we
it was
needed.
built on your information. There's still some, editing and wordsmithing that can happen. I don't even know anything at the next meeting. Beginning of January, we meet again, or you meet again. It may take a little bit more editing, but it is moving forward, and I can guarantee you I'll be in touch with Ross and make sure we connect with him. But Larry, I appreciate that, and then the board, thank you for that. It took a little bit of work.
Okay, so this is the plastic reduction bylaw update. Jay, that's probably you. Won't you?
It is. Well, I just wanted the board to be aware that, that in October, the chamber representatives came to you and asked, said, listen, they laid out a plan that they'd like to put a pause and kind of course correct, get something that their membership has said, listen, this is going to be problematic. And what they then went to the select board, and the select board, because of, again, an issue that you've had with the cranberry bog, there was going to be a special town meeting, and they put that on there, because what the board has also talked about is that people voted for this. They're not taking this lightly. They voted for this, and they said, can we pull back, get this correct? What is achievable? If you read that citizens petition, it was all 7 grades of plastic are not going to be allowed. That would be difficult, not for us to enforce, to even educate the retailers on. But I do want to speak to just, the chamber came, we handed out, when this passed, we handed out that bylaw, and we heard nothing. To this date, I've never heard from a retailer. But the chamber came to me at the end of July 29th and simply said, hey, listen, our membership, we have a concern. And they laid out what that would look like, and there was a series of meetings that they wanted to have to educate, and you were part of that educational process, and move forward. It's difficult because there's individuals and we haven't changed the focus. We just want to make sure, in my opinion, something that is achievable. That's good public policy, is putting people together, something that is achievable. Stakeholders. We're not going to gain compliance or reduce plastics by handing out $300 tickets. That's not going to happen. Retailers are going to come together, and they're the ones who are going to help. Now, and they have, quite frankly, to some degree already, but an enforceable, achievable, that we can communicate a policy that makes sense. And I just use the expression, I'd rather get it right than right on time. And so it's been delayed at the town meeting, if any of you were there or aware, another year. I don't think it's going to take a year, certainly, to write the policy. We have some good policies from other, kind of formats that I think, designs that we can use. And then there's going to be an educational curve to this. And we're going to have to educate the community and retailers and food service establishments on how to comply. And more than anything, and I think Jamie and Amy talked about this, to say, if there is not a suitable alternative, you may be hearing about that. Now, again, in saying this, I'm talking about this, and I talked at the town meeting. This hasn't been assigned to the board. This isn't even assigned here. I'm just assuming that it's going to come here and stepped up to say, okay, like we did with the bottle bill, the plastic water bottle. Now, I think that's our responsibility. We're in these establishments all day long. Well, that we should be educating, because that's the pillar of public health: education, community engagement, participation. That's how you gain compliance.
Well, and you're doing the food safety inspections, which is certainly when that can.
And we're there.
Yeah.
And we're there.
But I thought that Bob Rittenauer said that, I thought that he involved the health department when he said that, talked about a committee and having some people talking about it and working toward a.
He did. I sent him a draft of, and I sent it actually to you.
Right, but he did, when you said it hadn't even been given to the health department or the Board of Health, that basically it has now, right?
I think it has now. It's because the chamber reached out to me on July 29th. I then handed it to Bob and said, Bob, the chamber wants to meet with you.
Right.
In that, it was just a natural, kind of, I think it's our responsibility, quite frankly. We have to. And I'm assuming that when this gets written, I think I would like the board, a representative from the board, myself to be on that committee to say, how do we do this? We're front row at the beach on this thing. We should be involved in this. And I believe we are now. Originally, when this was, if you see how this is written, this isn't the Board of Health issue. When a citizen's petition, and nowhere does it say the Board of Health.
It was going to be assigned to a board or committee by the town manager,
Right.
is what the bylaws stated.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
What you're saying hasn't been done, still.
Well,
it is-
But by de facto, it kind of, I'm just going to step forward, because if I step back and say, well, I don't know, is that DBW, is that
Yeah, right.
DNR? No, someone has to take this.
Cemeteries.
Someone,
Committee, yeah.
someone has to take this.
Yeah, it'll come to us, and it should.
But, you know, you're under the Division of Inspectional Services, right? And so, and that, the enforcement of this is definitely involving inspection. So, you know, kind of sense from that standpoint.
And, you know, I really like, you know, enforcement, it is good, there is a component of that, it was earlier today, you know, a penalty. But education and engagement and participation is what gets you there. That's, as opposed to,
Right.
I'd
But
hate to think
If you have a
people.
regulation, somebody has to enforce it, or you might as well not have it.
Right. But compliance is done through educate, not to be punitive. The discipline of public health is
Right.
not designed to be punitive, as you all.
It's not.
Yeah. So, at the last meeting, it's now, just so you're aware, and there's going to be a lot of discussion about this, and I'm assuming at some point, a lot of retailers will be here, food service establishments will be here to talk about this. The chamber, they need to be an active partner in how this moves forward. There'll be meetings here, I would imagine, in front of you folks, to say, how can we put a policy together in place that is going to obviously protect the environment, improve that way, and also allow a viable alternative for the food service establishments.
I was pretty impressed by the number of people who were there, obviously, to discuss the plastic reduction bylaw. And of course, the little understanding that I think most people had and what would be actually involved in trying to eliminate all plastic. But the other thing is, too, that they brought up the point that we had first, I think, objected to, and that was, why are you now going back on a vote that we made for something to happen?
That's a legitimate question. Yep, absolutely.
This, I think, the part that we reacted to first. You know, that's just not something that's,
The deliberative body of this town, the deliberative body, the town said, we want this. Now, I think the difficulty is, if you read that, that would be very difficult to enforce, and should it have been done a year ago? To this day, not one retailer said to me or to our office, the inspector, nothing. Thankfully, the chamber had said that, and that was back in July. Then they met with Bob. We got a definition and interpretation from the town council. They then came to this board. They came to the select board. It did take time. And as a matter of fact, if you remember that meeting with Jamie and Mary, they said, we don't want this perception that we're going to be here at the 11th hour. Quite frankly, it turned out to be the 11th hour.
and they were not at the town meeting, or they didn't speak up if they were.
Correct, the latter, yes, they were there, but did
They
not
were at the
speak up.
meeting. They did not speak up. Haley was the only one that spoke up,
Yes,
the young girl.
right.
Jay, do you get the impression that, I wasn't at the meetings, but are they special interest group that sort of put a coalition together to get this thing through? You think, or is it just the general population that really?
There were some small groups. There have been some small groups all along in town who have tried to put forth some progressive ideas.
But did
And-
they supply alternative products?
No, and that's what Haley said, you know,
I
that,
get the feeling that they were, because it's almost like they've up and vanished at this
Yeah.
point in time,
Yeah.
and the young woman Haley's no longer employed with that.
no, but she did. Yeah, right.
What would have been,
There's no big organization that does it, but there are smaller groups that come forth with, you know, like a sanctuary city petition and, you know, things like that, but, and we have a recycling committee, right, in the town.
I put their name forward as being a representative, a woman's name who would be on the potential, I'll call it a task force or a working group. They were in support of this, to push this back. But some of this also, I don't think anyone is in agreement. There was some comments of, well, this is a way to kick it down the road and do nothing. No one wants to do that. No one.
No.
This board, would have been nice is if this board, their participation and say, listen, we're thinking about writing something, we'd like to hear from the board. What do you think? It wasn't that. It was done through a citizen's petition.
But, you know, there probably are some people that would like to kick it down the road or just not have it
Well-
happen. But those people were not at town meeting, or if they were outvoted, you know, and that's the whole thing. When these kinds of things come up, you have to be at town meeting and hopefully cast your informed vote.
I can tell you directly that the town administrator, the select board, the chamber, no one has mentioned, well, let's just, we'll kind of let this drift. No one said, let's get something that is achievable, it's going to protect the environment, put safeguards in place, and also allow our hospitality industry to be able to function in an appropriate way. And then some variances are very important, because Jamie said that. If there's not a suitable alternative, well, there's no method to resolve that. All of our regulations, Article 10, Title 5, adequate, sufficient, there's words for flexibility. This didn't have that at all. 7 grades of plastic will be eliminated. That's it. So, I'm optimistic that we can put a task force on myself. There'll be a representative from the board. We'll put something together, and then there's going to have to be an educational campaign.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep, and it will educate the community on this. And it won't go into effect July 1st, that's their busy season. And I think it could have been done earlier, but the policy will clearly be ready before January 26th. Implementation has to be in the off-season, just out of sheer accommodation for the business owners. But they need to, and they can start making accommodations. They can be started getting ready, they're supplying things of that nature, and they don't have to wait till January 1st. They can move forward as this is done. Their participation will be incredibly important. That's a good faith effort.
The Chamber, Mary said that some businesses had already started
And
looking into it and putting
they've mentioned that.
into effect.
They mentioned that from day one, and they want to comply. They weren't just pushing it to the side, no, they want to comply. They just need to know how they're going to get there. So, I'm optimistic.
I think back that just for some expertise, back to the single-use plastic bottles, we had a professor here, maybe she was from BU, I forget, she was really very knowledgeable.
Not for the plastic bottles.
No, what was she here for?
She was here for the plastic reduction.
It was the whole thing then.
Yeah.
Maybe a source of some information or expertise, not necessarily expect her to show up again.
She came, and I think that group is somewhat disbanded.
That's what Haley said.
Yeah. My impression is that group no longer is formed. And Haley's not even with them anymore.
Source of information for us, whether it's literature to read or what else is going on that may just save time for our task force. I don't recall the professor's name.
I can definitely get you. You're right, it was BU. It was difficult to get her. Did she Zoom in? No, she came here in person.
Yes, she did. Oh,
Yeah, she
she's
came in
sitting
person,
on
yeah.
that side of the table, yes.
Yep.
Slide deck, yeah.
It was actually, it was quite an informative presentation.
Great.
Excellent.
It really was, and her terminology, and, just even to pull back and look at this from 30,000 feet, she said, we're treating our plastics as if they're biodegradable. We're putting them in landfills, and we weren't prepared. We didn't have a strategy. We didn't know how to handle them. So going back now, it's got to be, 2 generations, and we put plastics into landfills. And look what,
We've sent them to third world countries is what we've done now, lately,
maybe more recent.
drowning in them.
I'll reach out.
Okay, let's call this number 6, accept minutes from December 2nd, 2024 meeting. Mary, I know you had one edit.
Yes, and
I
Monique,
gave everybody
Here it is.
in front of you
Yep.
updated.
Okay. Did anyone else have any edits or corrections to the minutes from the December 2nd meeting?
I move that we approve the minutes of the Board of Health meeting on December 2nd, 2024, as given to us this evening.
Thank you. Second, someone?
Second.
Okay, done. Discussion? None? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Eric, you got it. Thank you. All right. New and old business.
Just-
Jay, it's the end of the year. If there's some things that happen at the end of the year that may be relevant
Yeah,
here.
it's busy at the end of the year, right? All our, all vast majority of our permits come due calendar year, right? So December 31st. So the board is aware, all of the tobacco, now we're down to 27, right? We've put a ceiling on this. 27 tobacco permits are now within the town of Yarmouth, and all of them have been applied for, and all of them have been issued. So that's good. All of the housing, 3,100 housing rental applications have been put in the mail. And we're trying to move people to apply online. Okay, the difficulty is that there's a small charge if they apply online. So sometimes they put an application online and then they come in and they walk in a check. So there's a little bit of disconnect on that. But we're moving in the direction. We're moving the needle on applications online. Food services have gone out. It's a busy time, and now they're all coming back, right? But we have a great staff that is working hard, and they're meeting the moment, and so it's a time when we get a chance to interact with a lot of residents and business owners, where they would actually come in and talk to us on different things. So that's helpful. A lot of the phone rings a lot at this time of year. Have I applied? Can I do this online? I'm having difficult with OpenGov. So we get a lot of communication one-on-one, and we're able to have a positive customer service relations with them. And that's really important, right? That they can reach out to us. So that's important. The other thing you need to know is about 15 boxes of COVID kits have gone out over the past week and a half, 2 weeks.
Wow.
They're still coming in. We're down to 1 box left out of 15. So they're coming in on a regular.
4,320 tests have been given out in the last 2 weeks, so.
So it's on people's mind.
Well, COVID cases are up, RSV's up, flu's up, whooping cough, and that's as we're closing windows and staying indoors, so they're all going up.
Jay, usually, I think it's around this time of year that the health department was requested to go to the board of select with or select board rather, with a report. Is that
So that is done part of budget. So I put in there.
accomplishments for the year?
So
He used to tell us that he had to appear before the select board and, right? And he would,
I'm not sure it happened every year, but
I thought it
has
was an
happened.
annual time.
so that's just part of the budget process in writing a narrative.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
That's part of the budget process, and we're in that process.
happen?
That's it. We're in the process of that now.
Yeah, it came down to money,
Yep.
usually.
The other one thing I did want to ask the board is when you have reorganized. For some reason, I thought that was October, and then if I missed that, I apologize. Is there a time of year that you reorganize and take votes on that? Do you recall?
October sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, for this board,
It's just each year you've reorganized. You reorganize and take votes.
long time ago, it used to happen, and then we sort of let, I mean, each year I would say, does anybody want to take this?
Oh, okay. So what had to be formal? I didn't know if I missed it.
it. I didn't step down, and I'm happy to give this to anyone.
no, I don't think
Well,
anybody-
You have to be on the board to take it. Larry, now you know.
Did
So
I-
Nothing's changed.
Okay, so I didn't miss it. I didn't know annually at the
I don't know
October.
the right answer to that.
At the October meeting, we reorganize, or July meeting, we reorganize. Unless someone says something, we're good the way it is. I just didn't know, do we have to take a formal process, a vote on that in any way?
I mean, the select board does, it's tricky at times in the sense of who's getting nominated, who does not, because they do make the change. I don't know about other boards or not, but we can decide. I don't think there's a regulation saying you have to do anything.
I
that I'm
didn't know if
aware of.
historically, if you said, oh,
October is when we're reappointed too, in our terms.
that was the reappointment date. As long as it wasn't something I was supposed to put on to say, oh, no, terrific.
Either, the select board wants you on, or they don't for another term, but as for what our position is,
That's within the board.
that's not up to
Beautiful.
them, or it hasn't been.
No, okay, perfect.
answer your question?
Well, it was, I just didn't know if I missed the date. It's something in my mind, I said, does the board, because typically they'd reorganize annually. A board would reorganize annually. If that's not the case, I wasn't sure, but something jumped out of October in my mind.
You brought it up, I know it's 7:15. Does anybody want to change it? We can talk about it the next meeting. So keep in mind, and anyone,
Jay, are you trying to send us a message?
Not at all. I just didn't know if I missed an administrative detail that I was supposed to be taking care of.
you get a different parking spot.
Yeah, yeah, and I can look back, but you're right, October is the, and I think you were just recently reappointed? weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, and they'll let me know on that. I
Yes.
just meant internally, is there's nothing that we need to do, that I needed to put on the account. Beautiful, that's good. Nope, I'm good. This is our last meeting for '24, so,
Next year.
January 6th, I think, is the next meeting.
January, thank you. First Monday in January.
Happy
January.
holidays, everybody.
Yeah, safe
My
and
only
safe.
request, Mary, let's leave you out of number 8. I mean, you make your efforts on every single motion we make, so we're going to keep you with your
You
mouth
stole my
closed.
thunder. I was gonna do
You're out.
one tonight.
You're out. Mary, you're out on
You were
this
too
one.
quick, though.
Okay.
So, one last thing, Mary, and I sent her a note.
Yeah, but that one's lame.
She has asked for a laptop.
Yes.
Our IT director, I did follow up on that. It's in the process. He came back, matter of fact, he was here the first time today. He had come back.
Great.
I'm going to work on that to make sure you,
February 6th is their next, the RAC meeting, so that. will
well
also-
before then, we can have that.
Yeah, yeah.
By all means, I wasn't forgotten. And I just want,
Actually, if our next meeting isn't until January 26th? is that-
6.
Oh,
Just
okay, so
to
there
move
is going to be that conflict.
You need
again.
that.
Yep,
Yes.
okay,
That's not a big ask. We can make that happen.
great, thank you.
Yep.
Hello. A motion, anyone?
I move, we adjourn.
Thank you. No discussion at all. Okay, all in favor, say aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.